Mana potions, something so basic and so powerful that we only notice how important they are when they are not available anymore, or not in sufficient quantities in any fantasy world. So they hold the potential to fundamentally alter the power balance within any fantasy realms, because these potions, when ingested, or just drop on a person, like Climb did in the Overlord novels, rapidly restore or even enhance a caster's mana reserves, allowing them to cast spells far beyond the limit of their own normal mana capacity. This seemingly simple mechanic, present in most video games that deal with magic and fantasy worlds, should absolutely have profound and far-reaching effects on nearly any aspects of any fantasy world society, on warfare, economy, and even the social hierarchy. Because in almost all fantasy settings, mana is a very finite resource for any caster, whether they are wizards, sorcerers, or druids. Typically, they need time to recover their mana reserves after expending much mana in the battle, and this limitation imposes a natural balance, as even the most powerful mages must conserve their magical resources and strategize very carefully when they use them, and how, and against which target. For example, in Mushoku Tensei, it is normal that any caster would keep about 50% of their mana reserves always to themselves, and then just stop attacking or even defending their teammates, unless they are threatened with immediate death, simply because if he runs out of mana, he becomes utterly defenseless. Now, mana potions disrupt the balance by providing a near-infinite replenishment for magical energy, and this should have severe implications for most society aspects, for example for warfare. First and foremost, with mana potions, battles can last much longer than before. A single caster with a sufficient supply of mana potions can continuously cast powerful spells, without the usual downtime for recovery, and this can turn the tide of a battle. And spoiler alert, at the end of Konosuba, Megumin gets high-quality manatite crystals from Kazuma as a gift, and we are talking about ridiculously pure and potent crystals right here, that enabled her to cast explosions many times a day. In short, Megumin became the most dangerous and truly the most foremost of the Crimson Demons on that very day. So with just this one invention, the potency of any caster could tenfold, making any small nation or just a small magic academy that has access or invented these potions an awakening superpower, as long as all other nations don't have access to the mana potions. But there's also the economic implication. Alchemists, herbalists, monster hunters, or anybody else who can procure the ingredients or mix them together that are needed for mana potions will earn quite a lot of money. And if a nation has a complete monopoly on this commodity, it can demand horrendous prices for these mana potions, while simultaneously discourage any invaders because they, or rather their casters, are the only one that have access to essentially unlimited, high-level spells. But ultimately, if this knowledge becomes common, many centuries later, the production and distribution of mana potions would become a major industry within any fantasy world, and the economic implications of this are very vast. And while we talk about money, we also need to talk about politics, because wizards, magic academies, mage guilds, and alchemists will become one of, if not the single most dominant class in any realm with a sufficient base of magic users, since they are powerful on the battlefield or, and this is especially important in peace times, in productive industries. Sure, they are able to cast explosion, but in peace times, they might be able to build roads, fertilize vast stretches of land, make entire schools of fish jump straight into the buckets of fishermen, and so on and so forth. And compared to melee fighters, who only have their natural body strength and their power on the battlefield. Specifically in peace times, Wizard would be able to leverage their advantage in power and in magical capacity on all sorts of fields compared to these fighters, so they would basically become a second-grade power to them. And of course, magical research that requires lots and lots of mana would become way easier. And we also have a concrete, or rather a plastic example for this, since Rudius, the walking, talking, panic attacking, suffering main character and mana reservoir of Mushoku Tensei, enabled Nanahoshi Shizuka, a magical researcher from another world, to conduct 10 years worth of magical experiments in just a few months. And at the very end, a working magical circle was conceived that could summon a plastic bottle from another world, which I'm sure is or will be a title of another light novel series with like 30 volumes in total, eventually. And now, with the emergence of a great and very important industry, questions of sustainability could also be illustrated, discussed, or even made the center of any story about magic potions revolutionizing magic in any given area. Maybe the animal, much like the beast Krusty the Clown used for the Rib Witch, will be rendered extinct due to overconsumption. Maybe nature will be plagued and polluted with magic dust as a side product from mining manatite ores, and therefore more mutations, more modifications, and more storms, hurricanes, volcanic eruptions, and any other catastrophes and mutations will happen because of the spreading manatite. So there's a great potential for more environmental storytelling than just letting some trees wake up and slay the Canadian that drank the blood of their people, which I'm sure is what the Two Towers were all about. And finally, the story could also focus on the downtrodden sword saints, spear prodigies, or that one guy that decided to fight with a triangle because it is the instrument he was best at playing while still in Japan, and how they would deal with the loss of status, position, money, prestige, and power. What about the former warrior guard, now replaced by 5 old dudes with an unlimited consumption habit of certain herbal medicines? So my point with all of this is that the very existence, and non-existence for that matter, of mana potions could and should fundamentally change and alter the power balance in any fantasy world. I mean, just look at Mushoku Tensei. You notice how special Rudius is, because in part there are no mana potions around. And with that said, now it's your turn. What are your thoughts on how mana potions, the inventions or absence of mana potions, could and should affect any fantasy world, story, and its lore? Let me know it down in the comment section. And while you type, I say thank you very much for watching and have a nice day.